No, I'm sure it's recording. All right. We are in Seattle, Washington with Kevin May, who is the founder of a company called Sticks. And Kevin, I'd like to ask you, after spending 2 weeks together and working on this project, the idea of going around the world and working with different people, I'm curious to hear your reflections on the idea.
I thought it was a good idea the very first time that you mentioned it to me, the first conversation, which must have been about a year ago now. And it's something which I've always had an issue with. The word professional is bandied about quite a lot, and in technical terms, advertising clearly isn't a profession. It isn't something which you need to be qualified for. You don't need to meet certain standards. You can't be disbarred. And so I loved the idea of treating it like a trade which required you to go off and do these apprenticeships. And so that in itself I thought was fascinating just as an idea. Having sort of seen you in action in the way that you've engaged with this, I think the 2 weeks periods are great. Just about the right amount of time. We would love to have had you for longer, but certainly it's given you enough time to get in and to understand what we do. I don't know how you might have got on at the other places you've been to. I think that from what you've said to me, you've got a really interesting array of people. You've very carefully put together a sort of a map of different types of people that you're going to spend time with, rather than just 12 random souls that would be prepared to put up with you for a couple of weeks. So I'm very much looking forward to the output of this. If you've dived in as deeply with everyone else as you have done with us, and have entered it with the same spirit, which I'm sure you have done, I've no doubt that you've got now some really interesting ingredients for writing the story. And sort of the primary benefit of doing this, I think you're going to have derived in any case, because you've now achieved the goal of going and spending time with these people. I know you still have some more to see, but I guess now it's just a question of how you put the story together and whether you can pull it all together in one good sort of narrative arc that makes it all cohesive internally. But
with your help,
yes.
I'm sure I will get there. So I think what really attracted me to Sticks was the very first conversation when I realized this is something different. This is somebody who's experimenting and trying out some new things. So I think people would be really interested to just hear the basics of how you have a network of people for creating a diversity of perspectives. And
yeah, I think when you start to do something, you have the choice of kind of going, do you want to just copy what is a previous model, or do you want to sit down and go, how would I do this if none of those previous models had ever existed? And it seemed much more sensible to start at the second place rather than the first place, because what was clear to me was that whatever the future of our industry is going to be, it's not going to survive if it just remains exactly the same thing. And that it would be much better to fail spectacularly by doing something completely different than just sort of putting lipstick on the pig. And that so many agencies seem to be sort of inventing a new lexicon of stuff that just describes a bunch of old behaviours and processes and ways of looking at things. And at the heart of it all, really to begin with, was this notion of a diversity of perspective, that I'd noticed a widening array of skill sets and expertise and experience among the people that I've been talking to, and it was quite humbling, because it left me sort of realising how very little I knew about so much stuff that was going to be important. And clearly it was never going to be realistic to hold all of those people in one single entity. But I thought if we could try and get ways of triangulating around problems by getting people from very different backgrounds. So we've got not just agency strategists, but we've got a bunch of ex-clients, we've got some people from a digital background, we've got people from a management consultancy background, but we've also got some people from other industries altogether. So I've got an architect and a poet and a teacher and a fundraiser and a life coach. These are all people who deal with problems, but they look at them from completely different perspectives. And if you kind of say to them, what we're looking at is not finding the answers, but we want to make sure we're asking the right questions to begin with, and then you try and organise them much less like an account management department and much more like a creative department, it struck me that could just be a really interesting way to see what we could do in order to up the ante on the quality of strategic output that is being utilised by people in the marketing and advertising worlds. Because much as I'm loath to admit it, a lot of the effort of people who work in strategic functions in those places is sort of glossed over, because the rubber only really hits the road when it gets to creative development. And if that then sort of means, oh shit, something went wrong with the strategy part of the thing, we can go back and revisit that. And it just seems to me to be incredibly inefficient and wasteful. It wastes time, it wastes money, it wastes opportunity. If you can't do everything you can from the very beginning to make sure that you're as pointed in as much in the most profitable direction as you possibly can be, and profitable in the broadest sense of the word, and that really, most people I know, whether they've got the creative ability or not to function in that department, were attracted to the business of working in advertising because it was a creative business, and they wanted to be able to work creatively in a creative environment. I don't see why all of the heavy lifting should just be left to the creatives in that sort of respect. And I think the final thing about Sticks, and hopefully your experiences have borne this out, is to put a lot of effort into the type of environment that you create, not just what you ask people to do and how you deploy them, but to make sure that you're making the work interesting, you're making it fun, and you're creating a place that people like going to. And we've been very lucky, because we really have benefited largely by being able to attract disproportionately talented people to come and work with us. And they keep on coming back, much less for the money I pay them, and much more because they say, I really enjoy it when I come and spend time with you guys. I know that you're going to be respectful of my time. It's usually only 1 or 2 hours. It's a short period of time. I come in, you're doing something interesting, you're putting me in a room with a bunch of other interesting people. We're going to do something that everyone's going to enjoy, and I love it. And then I can go back to my other world. Yeah. And so it works really well. I think we're on a trajectory, we're learning stuff, we're getting better at what we do, but I think we've really kind of got a rhythm together, and we're about to enter our 4th year of trading, and things are getting better all the time.
Yeah. Well, I very much enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me here, and I don't know what else to say. Thanks, Kevin.
It was a pleasure.